Thank you, Aslak, and good afternoon. Today, I'm going to make the case that true competitive advantage in business can only come from good management. Good management. And I also propose a tool that every organization can use to help develop good management. And as we go along, I hope you'll see that what I mean by management both includes, but is also a lot more than what typically goes for leadership. To start, let's look at what management really is. I really like Gary Hamel's beautiful definition of management as a social technology, the technology of human accomplishment. Peter Drucker said that managers are the life-giving element in every business. And if both of these are true, then Clay Christensen certainly has a point when he says that management, if practiced well, is among the noblest of professions. But we have a huge problem. Management isn't working. Only 15% of employees globally are actually engaged at work. 75% of new products and services that companies bring to market fail to be commercially successful. 70% of organizational change programs fail to reach their objectives. And return on assets as a measure of performance of US public companies has been on a steady decline since 1965, down to only a quarter today of what it was back in the 60s. In summary, our organizations make people miserable, they can't change, they can't innovate, and as a result, performance drops like a rock. Now that's not human accomplishment. That's a gigantic waste of human potential. And it makes me mad because it doesn't have to be that way. You know, we know so much better. There's a vast body of sound management theory in everything from innovation to making people thrive at work to creating high-performance organizations. And better yet, we also know how to put all of that stuff into practice. You know what all of these companies and many more like them have in common? They all deeply care about how management truly makes human accomplishment possible. We'll look at some examples in just a few minutes, but first, why isn't every organization like that? Well, simply put, management doesn't know what its job is. I first thought about that when Clay Christensen said that managers actually don't read his theories. So I wanted to test that, and as part of a little experiment, I asked managers whether they had heard of Clay and whether they actually are using any of his theories. And the results were sobering. About half didn't know him. The other half knew he had something to do with disruption, but none of them was actually able to explain the theory of disruptive innovation. And the results didn't change much when I asked, when I tried this with other great management thinkers. So how come so many managers don't seem to care much about some of the best thinking in their field? I believe that both business schools and the leadership industry bear a lot of the responsibility. First, business schools teach business, mainly in the form of analytical tools. That's useful, but it's not management. And the leadership industry obsesses over how leaders have to be while almost completely ignoring what they have to do. And that leaves the field wide open for consultants, bankers, investors to flawed managers with all their own narrow and often conflicting views of what they think the job is. We can almost feel sorry for the poor managers who get pulled into so many different directions. But frankly, too many of them become preoccupied with either themselves, technology, competitors, industry trends, financial metrics, all at the expense of management. But without management, we get the waste of human potential we've just seen before. So how might we change that? I believe we need to make it a lot easier for organizations and managers to focus on the real work of management and to ground that work in good theory. That's the goal of what I call management model design. Here's how it works. It goes back to actually considering what the basics of management are. And basically that means that it boils down in essence to 5 questions that every organization has to be able to answer. 1, how it executes its current business model. 2, how it innovates new business models. 3, how it builds bridges to connect the two. 4, how it learns, changes and improves. And 5, finally, but obviously not least, how it enables people to perform. Next question, how do you do that? Well, you typically do that by putting in place a set of systems, tools, and practices across a wide range of management disciplines, such as organization design, strategy, performance management, and so on and so forth. And all of these, of course, are shaped in turn by the kind of management theory you choose to guide your thinking. Job to be done, shareholder value, total motivation, and so on. Now, if you choose well, what you get is a coherent model of actually how and why your organization works. And that's your management model. And that's your job of management. So question to you. Can you explain your organization's management model? Most organizations, most managers I talk to actually cannot. But every organization has a management model. It may not be explicitly designed, it may not be visible, but it has one. But of course, if it's not visible, it's very difficult to challenge and improve, right? I guess many of you are familiar with the work of Alex Osterwalder and his team, and with the business model canvas, they've given us a great tool and a common language to help describe, challenge, and improve business models. So what if we could do for management models what they have done for business models? I believe we can. Say hello to the management model canvas. I'm going to walk you through its components, but this is going to be real quick. But we have copies of the canvas for you to pick up when you leave, and on there you'll find a bit more detail. So first, there's a kind of outer frame, right, with purpose and direction at the bottom, results at the top, execution on the right, innovation on the left. Then, as we move to the center, we integrate all of that organizationally under contribution, and finally bring everything to life with decision-making, sharing, and changing in the outer circle, and people and leadership at the very heart. By the way, this kind of holistic view of management also helps us see both the importance at the heart of leadership, but also its limits. Even the most inspiring leadership can at best have short-term effects unless all the other parts of the management model are firmly in place. Now with this, we can actually answer our 5 questions about execution, innovation, how we integrate the two, how we learn, improve, and change, and how we enable people to perform. Then, think business model canvas. With yellow sticky notes, we identify the kind of systems, tools, and practices we put in place. And with green sticky notes, we identify the theory we choose to guide our thinking. And voila, here's your management model, ready for critique and improvement. And now, business model and management model can actually join forces. Remember, the business model alone won't make you successful. You also need an organization that can deliver. That's why we need to apply the same kind of rigor in designing management models as we've come to expect from designing business models. Or, as Jason Fried puts it, your company better be your best product, because it's the product you use to make everything else you do. Think about that as we now look at some examples. First, RitzCarlton. Now, the RitzCarlton is all about exceptional customer service. Consider these 3 elements from their management model. First, Credo cards. Credo cards have the RitzCarlton service values written on them. Employees carry them with them every day. Then there's the daily lineup meeting that brings together employees from all different departments. Housekeeping, front desk, and so on. It's held at every hotel every day. There, employees pull out their cards and they share stories of how they bring these values to life in their interaction with customers. That keeps the values fresh and makes them real and tangible. Finally, one such value says, as a team member, I own and immediately resolve guest problems. Now, that's easy to say, but at the RitzCarlton, they give every employee a budget of $2,000 per guest per day so that they actually can resolve guest problems. No questions asked. Now, of course, that's not everything, but that's the kind of thing that enables the RitzCarlton and its employees to create the clarity, responsibility, and ownership, right? That enables them to create such exceptional customer experiences. Like in the story of Chris Hearn and his family. They had just spent a long weekend at the RitzCarlton Amelia Island when their 5-year-old son discovered that he had left behind his favorite stuffed animal, Joshi the giraffe. All right? Now, it wouldn't be the RitzCarlton if they would just find Joshi and send him over. No. When the Hearn family had Joshi delivered to their door a few days later, they actually also got a photo album documenting Joshi's extended stay at the Ritz, chilling by the pool, and even getting a spa treatment. Now, that's what good management looks like. That's what good management looks like. Next, Greyston Bakery. Who's heard of Greyston? All right. Who's heard of, or who's ever tried Ben & Jerry's ice cream? Ah, quite a few more. So Greyston makes the brownie that Ben & Jerry's uses in one of their most popular flavors. But what's truly remarkable about them is that they don't hire people to bake brownies. They bake brownies to hire people. That's right. They practice open hiring. Anyone who wants a job gets a job. This is Dion Drew. He started dealing drugs when he was 14 to help support his family. The next 20 years, he was in and out of jail until finally, after serving another 4-year sentence, he decided to change his life. He applied for jobs, but of course, no one would hire him until he applied to Greyston. Greyston today employs about 200 people, all with histories in addiction, criminal records, and so on. Greyston creates employment opportunities for the unemployable. So how do they do it? First, single product, brownies. That's really critical to keep operations as simple as possible, which in turn is key to be able to train largely unskilled and often unschooled workers. Next, they developed a kind of 10-month apprenticeship that not only teaches bakery skills, but also basic life skills, such as financial literacy, which is critical so that the employees develop the kind of stable life outside the bakery that Greyston understands is important for the performance at the bakery. Last but not least, there's team-based bonuses, and every new team member is assigned to a team, so that it becomes the team's interest to support that new team member and help them quickly get up to speed. Again, that's not everything, but that's what enables them to not only practice open hiring, but at the same time deliver a high-quality product and be competitive in the market as a key supplier of a world market leader. Because they're actually a business, they're not a charity. So I hope these two examples help you see the power of well-designed management models. But there's one more thing. We can actually use the management model lens to also gain some new insights in a really overused case, Apple. So here's the story, the real story of how Apple is so successful. And guess what? Management, right? So first, Apple's top team meets for a full day every week. They discuss all the ongoing business and all the critical innovation projects in the pipeline. That helps create a cohesive team because they actually work together as a team. Next is their functional organization. So there's design, there's marketing, there's operations, there's retail, and so on and so forth. But there's no senior vice president of Apple, iPhone, or Mac sitting at the table. And if you add to that the single P&L, that really means that all of these executives are working towards the same goal. So there's no politics between rival product groups, for instance, that holds back innovation. It doesn't matter if iPad sales eat into Mac sales. And it doesn't even matter if the iPhone kills the iPod. And again, that's not everything. But these things are key for Apple to be able to make bold decisions, bring innovation to market, and collaborate seamlessly across functions. And that's at least as important for their success as is design, technology, and marketing. Reality is, however, that most organizations don't think much about these things. Almost everyone can explain their business model, but only very, very few can explain their management model. But in today's world, where everyone has access to the same technology, people, ideas, I believe that business models can actually be copied quite easily. And we see that all around. And that's why I argue that your only hope for true and lasting strategic advantage is a well-designed management model. All of you can start to improve your own management model tomorrow. And the best way to start is to simply describe your current model. So when you leave, pick up your copy of the canvas, and on the back you'll have instructions for how to do that. It only takes about 60 minutes to make things explicit. And I promise you, this will already yield valuable insights into how and where you might want to think about improving. Imagine a world where organizations, where companies that really cultivate human accomplishment, like the ones we've looked at today, are the rule, and not the exceptional cases we celebrate at business conferences. That world is entirely possible. All that's needed is our commitment to excellence in management, the most important social technology that we have. I ask you to help create that world. Thank you.